Time now for sports on 104.7 The Cave. Here's Ned Reynolds.
Mike, the intern, Ned Reynolds, in the studio on a Tuesday morning. Both the Kansas City Royals and St. Louis Cardinals are done for the year, but that doesn't mean baseball's done anytime soon.
Not hardly. These are the wild card playoffs that begin today and begin in Central Time, noon. And the first game on the schedule is in Cleveland at Progressive Field. Detroit Tigers and the Cleveland Guardians. And Cleveland gets the home field advantage. They have the tiebreaker in this series. Detroit had such a great year, and yet here they are in the wild card playoff. That's the first game. Second game is at Wrigley Field, Chicago, San Diego Padres and the Chicago Cubs. That starts around 2. That'll be a pretty good series. The Padres have a lot of power, but beating the Cubs in Chicago is really tough. However, I don't show partiality, but we all know Mike Schilt down here with the Springfield Cardinals. Really good manager. Let's see what he does in this series. Best of 3. Boston Red Sox play the New York Yankees at Yankee Stadium early this evening, actually late this afternoon. And then the night contest is out at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles. The Cincinnati Reds and the Dodgers. These are all best of 3, and they'll run consecutively. Today, Wednesday, and if necessary, Thursday. They get them done. Out of here, the winners advance to the divisional playoffs.
Speaking of partiality as far as baseball goes, I mean, I know that I'm a Royals fan, but I used to be a Cardinals fan. I still hate the Cubs, so go Padres. Speaking of managers, we've got a few that are no longer employed.
They are not, the one is only partially employed. We'll talk about that. Rocco Baldelli out with the Minnesota Twins after 7 years. He had pretty good career with them, but their team this year was just not competitive. Bob Melvin, an old pro, he's out with the San Francisco Giants. The third one, who's kind of a partial dismissal in a way, is Bruce Bochy with the Texas Rangers. Heck, he had a championship team just a couple of years ago, but by, quote, mutual agreement, end quote. Now, you can interpret that any way you want, but by mutual agreement, Bochy and the Rangers, Texas Rangers, have decided to dismiss him as a manager, but offer him a job in the front office. So he's probably going to stay with the organization, but in terms of managing the team, that'll be it. So 3 of them, Baldelli, Melvin, and Bochy, out of work, and there may be more.
You surprised what Coach Petrino's been doing since he's been in that chair for, a day now?
day and a half. And yes, I got to admit to you, I am a little bit surprised. Here's Bobby Petrino. He is the interim coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks after the firing of Mr. Pittman down there on Sunday. So he's the interim coach, and what's he do? What's his first thing to do? This is the interim coach now. He fired 3 of the assistant coaches. Well, I guess he has the backing of the athletic director because Petrino dismissed them. Now, Bobby also himself announced that he is a candidate for the full-time job. They'll announce that at the end of the season, and I think a lot of it depends on what the Razorbacks do for the rest of this campaign. Boy, they were just horrible on well, of course, keep in mind, Notre Dame's a pretty doggone good football team, but the first meeting ever in the history of the two schools, and Notre Dame wins it 56-13 in Fayetteville. And you know, Mike, we talked a little bit about the fans leaving early in Springfield, Missouri. Well, the fans left more than early down there. They were out of there. By halftime, when it was 42-3, the crowd was supposed to be, and I think this is probably accurate, 75,000. By the end of the game, there were 75.
Yeah.
Period.
When your town treats that team like a religion, and in Fayetteville, they do treat the Arkansas Razorbacks like a religion. Right now are the end times, I'll tell you that. Last night had a doubleheader Monday Night Football showdown. And in one of them, a player who used to be a Kansas City Chief had his leg going the opposite direction it should go.
It was gruesome, to say the least. That's Tyreek Hill, about whom you're talking. Incidentally, before I get to that, you mentioned the doubleheader. That's the second of 4 of them that are scheduled for Monday nights now. It's kind of a gimmick, so to speak, that the NFL and TV is pulling. 2 games on Monday night, and there are 2 more to go. Anyway, Tyreek Hill, dislocated knee in the second quarter of the game against the New York Jets, and he was obviously in pain on the field. How long he'll be out, that remains to be seen. Miami went ahead and won the game 27-21. Tua Tagovailoa had a couple of touchdowns in this one, and a win for the Miami Dolphins, holding off a team that is getting better, the New York Jets, but they aren't quite there yet. In the other game out in the Rocky Mountains, it was the Denver Broncos big over the Cincinnati Bengals, 28-3. Bo Nix threw for 326 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the Broncos running back, this guy you got to watch out for, J.K. Dobbins, he ran for 101 yards. It was Baltimore that had Dobbins on their team as a backup, and they let him go at salary and so forth and so on. But now with the Broncos, he is their key man, and Bo Nix is the guy to watch out for. A good win for the Denver Broncos, 28-3.
I think the Bengals are done for, man.
I'm afraid they are, without Burrow.
Really surprised the Dolphins came back to win that yesterday.
Well, the Dolphins have an interesting team. They aren't together, and this may be it for their coach. And now they're not going to fire him now, but maybe a little bit later on, McDaniel, who's done a good job, and I think he's popular with the players, but they just don't seem to have the wherewithal to get it done in the clutch. Did last night, but hey, you've got a long way to go.
I spent a lot of money on guys when it's falling apart like this. Does not feel good. All right, so after all the craziness that happened over the weekend in college football, you knew that there was going to be a shakeup in that ranking.
We'll talk about the top 5, and it's Ohio State still number 1. They went out on the West Coast in very impressive fashion. They knocked off the University of Washington. Back in the old days, that would have been the Rose Bowl, Ohio State and Washington. But this is now Big Ten Conference game, and Ohio State beat them 24-6, they being the Washington Huskies on the Huskies' home field, Husky Stadium. So Ohio State retains number 1. Oregon is number 2 with a double overtime win over Penn State. Miami, number 3. Miami's pretty good, folks, and they have a big one coming up. They have Florida State on the schedule for this weekend. Ole Miss, number 4, after a big win over LSU. And Oklahoma was idle, but the Sooners are number 5. And then it goes all the way down to the top 25, but we'll talk more about that in a second.
I think Oklahoma has a hell of a team, and Mizzou went up just one space, which is nice to see, right?
Well, indeed. And Missouri is there. They are ranked number 19 in the country. Of course, they weren't going to, unless they had lost the game, which was highly, highly unlikely. Played UMass, University of Massachusetts, which is attempting to come back into the big-time realm. They're members of the Mid-American Conference, and they are not very good at all. And Missouri whipped them by a score of 42-6, even though Missouri was a 44-point favorite in this game. Missouri did get the win. They retain 19th position. The Tigers are off this week. Then they have an October 11th game coming up. That's their next game. The Tide that comes into Columbia. And the Tide, of course, is a pretty good team. Alabama does play this week. They play Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt's no softy. They're a very good football team. They are nationally ranked as well. And Alabama owes them a little debt because Vanderbilt beat them last year for the first time in about 7 zillion years. And they have the replay coming up in Tuscaloosa coming up this Saturday. Then on to play the Missouri Tigers.
I'm surprised that Florida State's still in the top 20 after losing to Virginia like that.
They did, but you can't pin just one loss
game,
on them.
I know, but still, man.
And Virginia's pretty good. They're a sleeper. Now, keep in mind, guys, these rankings that we're talking about are all for discussion, and these are the Associated Press, which back in the old days used to be it. That's how you judge your champion, but no more. Now you have the official bowl committee rankings, and they will come out October 31st, the first ones, and that's how you will judge who's going where and who's going to play for national championships.
Who's going to be in that top 12 playoff, man? We got a long way to go before we get there. Ned, have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.